All right.
Hi.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And welcome to episode 387 of Cinematary. I'm your host, Zach Dennis, and I am here with.
I'm Nazeeh. Hey there.
Jess.
And Andrew Swafford.
In today's episode, we'll be talking about movies that we saw this week in part 1. And in part 2, we will continue our labor and basketball series with 1998's He Got Game. Because what's a labor and basketball series without a Spike Lee movie?
Yeah.
Real quickly, head over to cinematary.com. We got reviews of Drive My Car, Silence, Noah. If you still haven't got to those, and then we'll be having our next week. We'll have our series lineup for our upcoming series after this one. We got one more movie left in labor and basketball. So head over to cinematary.com to see that stuff. Let's go ahead and jump in the movies that we saw this week. And Jess and Andrew, I'm going to kick it off with y'all because y'all saw a new release.
Yeah, we'll start with the new release. We watched a movie that I have been eagerly anticipating for I don't know how long, probably over a year at this point. When this movie got announced, I was extremely excited. The movie is Belle by the anime filmmaker Mamoru Hosoda. Known for Summer Wars, Wolf Children, The Boy and the Beast. He also made the Digimon movie back in the day. Surprisingly good, at least from my childhood memory of the Digimon movie. As a kid who didn't like Digimon, I was like, wow, that's actually kind of impressive.
If it's anything like the Bionicle movie, there's no way. There's no way it's good.
Maybe we'll have to, episode 400, maybe we'll watch the Digimon movie.
Oh, boy.
But anyways, this is his Beauty and the Beast adaptation. And it's specifically a Beauty and the Beast adaptation set in the internet or the metaverse, if you want to think about it that way. It's kind of like a cyberspace thing, very similar to the cyberspace thing in Summer Wars, where everybody has like this physical avatar that can kind of interact with other physical avatars, and they're like customized to match the person's personality and their abilities and stuff like that. Very Digimon as well. But I mean, that's the elevator pitch, right? Like it's Beauty and the Beast in the metaverse.
Except it's like kind of not. Like there is a girl and there is a beast character, and he does have a castle and there are some roses, but it's not really a romance.
It's really not. Yeah.
And they kind of sort of make it like at first you're sort of thinking it's romantic, but the similarities kind of begin and end there. I mean, also he sort of has a little squad of little small creatures that follow him around, but that's pretty much the beginning and end of the similarities.
Yeah.
It's not he's really like haunting and brooded, and then you end up finding out like who he really is at the end. But
it's not really adapting the Beauty and the Beast fairy tale so much as it is alluding to the Disney movie. Like the moments that like feel like Beauty and the Beast moments are like directly like copied visually and like aesthetically from Disney's Beauty and the Beast. The Tale of Oldest Time like, dance sequence.
Yeah, they do get a little dance. I guess she is kind of like a bookish type person too. So there's that similarity. I mean, there's definitely some similarities, but there's definitely not the like romantic thing that is pretty central to the Beauty and the Beast movie,
which is a subversion. You're expecting it to be romantic, and then it ends up not being that.
We'll give it to him, I guess. But I just feel like there could have been some other way to do it. I don't know.
I mean, what we're dancing around here is that the movie is bad. I really wanted this movie to be good. Again, so excited, and like. It starts up and it's just like a little cringy and the exposition is very clumsy. And I'm like, anime can kind of be this way sometimes. Right. Mamoru Hosoda is maybe not the best at exposition. Once we get past this bump, like we're gonna settle into it and it's gonna be cool. And like it never
gets good. Yeah. You just keep waiting for, I guess, the plot to unfold. You keep waiting for the buy-in to happen. And I kept thinking, maybe it's my ADHD. Maybe I am just in like a weird headspace. Maybe I am just like, this is not holding my attention and it's just a me thing. And I kept I started feeling anxious weirdly. I kept checking my watch, see how much longer the movie was going, see what my heart rate was. I kept fidgeting and wiggling in my seat. And I'm like, what? I feel like such an asshole because the movie really is also playing on a lot of tender and like heart-wrenching plot points. There's like child abuse. There's
loss of parents.
There's loss of parent. There's like a lot of like emotional high stakes. And so I felt like an asshole watching it, and I just could not get invested in this movie. But then luckily, by the time we left and we were talking to our friends about it, everybody hated it. So I was so glad that I wasn't just this like heartless beast.
You were the beast all along.
I guess visually it's kind of fun.
So it kind of has two different animation styles, similar to Summer Wars, where in the real world we're in 2D flat animation. It's kind of Ghibli-esque at times.
Yeah, for sure.
And then when we're in the metaverse, it is like 3D cell-shaded anime, like what a VTuber looks like.
Yeah, and there's a neat sequence too where the character, she's trying to get to the beast's castle, and these little characters keep like warping her to like a new landscape. And I thought it was kind of neat to see all the landscapes. The thing is, you spend most of the time when you're in this like metaverse existence, you spend most of the time in this like kind of boring looking city. And so I was kind of hoping that the internet, VR world was going to be a little bit more visually stunning, and it wasn't really.
It's basically just the Summer Wars metaverse again. Like there's very little difference aesthetically, and Summer Wars is a much better movie.
I think that the aesthetic in that movie was better, and I mean, like the real life setting was pretty in the same way that any other kind of anime. I think they always do a really good job, painting pretty landscapes, trees, rivers, things like that. A lot of animes make that look really, really comforting. But yeah, just none of those emotional plot points that they're really trying to make landed for me at all. And also, there's so many weird little inconsistencies that really shouldn't matter, but did. Like the way that at one point they kind of plug into they're not calling it the metaverse, they call it You.
It's an app called You.
Yes,
like
but
the letter
it's
U.
basically a virtual reality world, right? The first time she plugs into it, they make it seem like she's plugging in, they're like taking her soul and like zapping it.
It's the Matrix.
And so you think like, what is she doing? Is she just like sitting here like a zombie in her bedroom?
She's T-posing
while she's doing that? Or like, what's the situation? But then there are other scenes in the movie where she's in the metaverse thing, the You, whatever. But also she's like talking to people in real life and looking around. So I just don't understand how you can be doing both at the same time. It doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. But it'd be little things like that I'd be like, this doesn't even actually make sense. And they're not explaining it very well. And also, I guess there's a part of me too that doesn't want this reality. Like, let's go ahead, now that we've acknowledged that this could be creepy, let's just shut it down.
Let's just not do this.
Let's just go ahead and throw it all away. Get all the social media. Let's be done.
I think that like in Summer Wars, Hosoda is somewhat insightful about the nature of the internet in the like, he essentially has like one point to make, which is that the cyberspace and like meat space are inextricably connected. Like it's not like these are two separate worlds. They are one and the same world. Like the internet kind of exists in our human reality, right? So when the internet shuts down, like humanity shuts down too, or human civilization shuts down too. Like traffic lights don't work, right? There's like what's the whole thing happening right now with like shipping lines being like slowed down, like all that stuff is the thing that happens in Summer Wars too. And it's urgent in Summer Wars because there's a character who's dying and they need medical attention, and like without the internet we can't get the medical attention quite as fast as we would otherwise. And so I was really interested to see what Hosoda would have to say about the internet circling back to it, since it's been a minute since he's touched on that. And the internet has changed a lot since Summer Wars came out. And mostly what it does is kind of like try to do the examining cancel culture thing.
Really? Cancel culture?
And I think I genuinely think this is like a thing worth exploring in art, right? But I don't think it's handled particularly well here. It is so like the beast, the thing that's beastly about him is like kind of undefined. He's just kind of like
Kevin Spacey,
a noxious guy who like people don't like.
Well, he's like doing fights. I guess
he's
in
fighting.
In this like universe, you know, people can kind of rise to fame in different ways. Some people are artists and they sing and dance and look cool. Others, I guess you're supposed to think that there's another subset of people who like to do like in-game fighting or something like that. But apparently, I think his character fights in not really legal ways, like he hits too hard or something.
I don't know. It doesn't really go into it. It does explain it, right?
But I don't remember. Also, can we just say, like, the main bad guy of the movie, there's a whole like cop system in the movie, and they all look like basically furries, like they're all tall animal like
Hosoda acknowledges the existence of furries.
Cool, we'll allow it. But also the main one is named Justin, and
he's a cop dog named Justin.
He's a cop dog guy named Justin, and I don't care if you make your main bad guy named Justin. I'm sorry to all the Justin listeners out there. That's not a bad guy name. I'm not invested. You gotta come up with something else.
And so like what the cops do in the movie is they what's the term they use? It's not
unveiling.
Unveil. They unveil people, which is basically like doxing people. Like whenever somebody is canceled, targeted in the movie, like the cops show up and they reveal that person's true identity and like all their personal information.
Jeez, talk about hell.
so it really like, you know, frames the person being canceled as the victim in any given situation. And I'm sure there are plenty of situations where the person being canceled is the victim, but it's like painting a very broad brush. It's very black and white. And we're not like going into any reasons why people might be canceled. We're just kind of saying that, you know, when people get targeted online, that's bad. And the way that they kind of weave Beauty and the Beast into this is like, the beastly character is this guy who's like being canceled, and the twist is, you know, it's not a romance, it's a story about child abuse, and like the Beauty character needs to like somehow
spoilers now.
Don't
watch this movie.
Don't watch it.
Like the Beauty.
No, I'm definitely gonna watch it. I still really want to see it. You guys have not turned me off. It sounds like Paul Walter Hauser should watch this movie.
Paul Walter Hauser should watch this movie. So like the idea is that the Beast is only because he's the victim of abuse, and like it's kind of suggesting that like everybody on the internet who's behaving badly is just doing so because they're hurt inside somewhere, which is like maybe true on some sort of fundamental level, but it feels like a huge oversimplification of what's going on.
But also the resolution is so lame too.
It's extremely
travels
lame.
Across the country to go save this boy who's being abused, and she basically just shows up and hugs him and like stands in front of his dad, and his dad's like, all right, and walks off. And then the son is like, thank you for like standing up for me and giving me the confidence to what? I don't know. That's it. That's the end. They fixed it.
My Letterboxd review was that Sailor Moon meme of like Tuxedo Mask being like, my work here is done, and Sailor Moon saying, but you didn't do anything. Because like that's what happens with the hero in this movie. Like she quote unquote saves a kid from child abuse by like giving the dad like a hard stare like Paddington does. And this movie doesn't really do anything about like, you know, it like truly addressing any of the questions that it's raising about the internet either. It's just like very I don't know. Like I said, overly simplistic.
And just to be an asshole for like 30 seconds longer, the main character, bless her heart, like I know she had some tough times in her life, but she got on my nerves so bad.
Everyone is annoying.
Everybody's really annoying.
Yeah.
There's kind of a trope in our household where we'll watch like stories about teens, and I'll just look at Andrew and be like, teenagers are so dramatic. I'm over it. I just I don't know. So call me in a few years when we're through the roof, mad or sad or happy about everything in your life. It's too much. They get on my nerves. I'm done with teenager movies and shows.
Yeah,
anyway.
So this was disappointing. I feel like there's something else that I was going to say about it, but I'm struggling to remember what it was.
Go see it if you must, but
See it if you
no,
must.
I'm gonna see it. I mean, you guys had so much to say about it. I mean, it's negative, but you still had a lot. It elicited a lot of feelings out of you. You know.
I remember the thing I was.
The biggest was boredom.
On the one hand, it's dealing with cancel culture stuff. That's the beast side of the equation. On the other hand, it's dealing with influencer culture on a certain level. Like Beauty's character, Belle, is a singer. Like her mother taught her to sing at a young age, and then her mother died, and so she hasn't been singing for a long time because it makes her feel bad. And she goes into the metaverse and she starts singing, and she like instantly becomes this idol, which is interesting to consider like in relation to like Japanese culture, because like so many of their pop idols are literally like constructions, like they're not real people, they're programs, right? But like the way that stuff works in the movie doesn't make any sense to me at all either. Like she makes an account, she posts a thing, she doesn't interact with anybody, and then like her account just like starts getting thousands and thousands and thousands of followers out of nowhere, like immediately, as if this is how, like, as someone who's been trying to get a creative project, in the spotlight since 2014, it is not that easy to get eyes on your shit. It just like it's kind of like treating influencerdom as like this weird force of nature that we can't get away from.
I think it can be really random. Like just the right set of eyes sees you and retweets it, and it can go viral without really on purpose. But also her friend had something to do with it.
That's true.
Her friend was really plugged into. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't deal with any of that stuff in any depth really. But yeah, that's Belle.
That's Belle.
That's all we got.
Yeah.
Well, it sounded awful. So
you'll probably skip it, Zach?
Yeah, hard skip on that. I got all I needed on that.
Yeah.
Summer Wars and Wolf Children are really good movies.
Yes.
People should watch
Okay.
them.
Yeah.
Start there, and then if you just feel like you're craving some more,
if you must,
go see Belle. It's in theaters. It's a Fathom event, I guess. It might be over now. I don't know.
I think Fathom was like a preview, and it's coming back out.
Yeah, it's playing in Minneapolis this week. So and
you're
next
in
week.
Minnesota?
Yeah, that's where I live.
Oh, cool.
Well,
Cool.
are you from here?
No, I have a friend who lives in Minnesota. This is good podcast content. I didn't know that. Cool.
She's just really into Minnesota. It's just,
Hey, that's cool. No one I know who doesn't live here is. So they're all like, "Why'd you leave California and come here?" And I'm like, "It's really expensive to live in California."
Awesome.
It's great. No, I'm trying to do my part to make people realize how cool it is. I'm there.
I'm sold. It's great.
Yeah, definitely.
Z, you got a movie.
That's actually a great segue because the movie I'm talking about was viewed at a theater in Minneapolis called the Trilon. They're this incredible independent repertory theater, and they were having a Carl Franklin double bill. And so one of the movies they showed was Devil in a Blue Dress from 1995. It takes place in the late 1940s. It's about Denzel Washington, who is like just very much a straight shooter, which is foundational to like every character Denzel Washington plays. Mm-hmm. Like even if he's like morally questionable, like he's not about bullshit. I feel in whatever role he takes, like he's a straight guy. But
he's
in this
super
movie,
drunk in flight, but he's a straight shooter.
No, exactly. Like even when he's a fuck up, like he's a good guy, which is like why we all love him. Yeah. But in this movie, like he's so it's this like really interesting portrait of like a Black community in LA in the late 40s, which is a portrait you don't get to see very often by like Black creators. And he just at the beginning of the movie he gets fired from his job, and like he owns his own house, which is like a big deal like in the context of like his life and in the community he lives in, and all he wants to do is like pay his bills, like work, live his life, mind his business. And this guy he knows introduces him to a guy he knows about the girlfriend of a running politician that goes missing, and so he has to go find her. And it's just this really, really lovely neo-noir that goes in all these directions but never gets like convoluted in details, which is like something that I feel like noirs do. It's like a consequence like of the genre.
Yeah, I get confused a lot watching noir.
Yeah, it's not even being confused. It's just like how many like directions is this gonna go in before like it just becomes exhausting. But it never felt that way. And so there's all this mystery, there's all this intrigue, and it's you know, Carl Franklin. My theater showed another movie with Denzel and Carl Franklin called Out of Time from like 2003, and that's like a fun movie, but like it's not at all like the work here. I thought it was really really fantastic. Don Cheadle is this character in it who like steals every scene he's in. He's this guy that so Denzel's name in the movie is Ezekiel, and everyone calls him Easy. So Easy calls Don Cheadle like from back home, and Don Cheadle just immediately shows up and is immediately ready to like do whatever needs to be done. He's like this completely like unhinged, like charming guy who's like a psychopath. He's like clearly a psychopath, but like he's all the way with the shits. He will like he's loyal as hell to Denzel, but like to nobody else. And I'm really, really surprised. I just haven't heard of this performance from him. You know, he's in a lot of movies. He's like pretty like well known, but this is easily like the best thing I've seen from him. Yeah, it was showed on like a really nice 35 millimeter print that looked pretty good. It had like a slight sound issue, but yeah, that's like the best thing I've seen recently, and it was really fantastic. Carl Franklin is someone I like just want to explore more of. Yeah, I'd recommend it to like anybody. It like immediately became an instant favorite for me. So
I'm curious about one thing, you know, in comparison between this and Out of Time, because that is a contemporary set movie, right, for when it came out. Yet this is set in the 1940s, and I'm wondering, like, did they do anything formally or aesthetically to make it feel like a movie from the 1940s, or anything particular to kind of evoke the time period?
So the cool thing that I noticed after I watched this is period pieces that were shot more than 20 years ago, because they kind of become double period pieces, right? The technology, the tech they were using to shoot this film in a decade 50 years before is like older at this point. Like if you made a movie in the 90s, that'd also be a period piece. So it has the sheen of older tech, and then it has the sheen of the period that they're showing. And it looks pretty like seamless. Like as soon as the movie started, like I immediately believed we were in LA in the late 1940s. And when I was thinking about it, I noticed that I feel like long, like grandiose tracking shots with cranes are like almost synonymous with period pieces. If you think about like, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, okay. My video. I don't know what's going on with my video. If you think about like Hoffa by Danny DeVito, which I know is a weird reference, or like Gangs of New York, like, you know, just really long sweeping tracking shots that like also incorporate crane shots over, you know, like a really busy intersection. And I guess it's just like like an economic way of like presenting a period of time that we don't live in. But yeah, there was a lot of like really wonderful, really like grandiose tracking shots. And he would hold the scene for a long time, and there'd be like a lot of movement that was like really well choreographed of just like, you know, a lot of really busy like divey bars that like Denzel hangs out in. And yeah, that's like what I noticed the most. It looks fantastic. It was shot by Tak Fujimoto, who shot Badlands, which is like one of the best movies of all fucking time. He shot Silence of the Lambs. So yeah, I'd recommend this movie to anybody who just wants to see a good. My very very dear friend, my best friend from high school, is visiting me from out of town, from California, and you know, she like had never heard of this movie, didn't know anything about it, and she like loved it too. And she's like, "Nazeeh, I would have never watched that movie, like if it wasn't for you like taking me to this." I'm like, "Yeah, like I really really enjoyed it too." So
nice. I just added it to the watch list.
Yeah, gotta check it out. Carl Franklin, man. Apparently they played one of his other movies, One Sudden Move or something like that. That also is supposed to be pretty good. I should get the name of that.
One False Move.
One False Move. Yes. So I'll have to check that out next.
Nice. Well, it looks like this one is on Hulu and Amazon Prime. So
yeah. Watch it.
There you go. I want to wrap things up, but I guess throwing water on our top 10 list, as if we didn't do that enough during the top 10 list. So at the time I hadn't seen Old. I've seen Old now.
How do you feel?
How much have you aged since seeing
Do you
Old?
feel a little older?
I would be fine on the old island. I'd be like, oh, this is okay. So for those who haven't seen all, the gist is they go to this island and it makes them old.
Who would have thought?
So that's what happens.
In case somehow you missed all of the memes, all of the
there's a beach and it makes them old. And they go to it and it's my only thing with it is the twist ending. So I guess if you're against that, like just skip ahead to part 2 or whatever. I didn't think it was the worst thing of all time what the scientist did. And I felt like it was an overreaction that they arrested the scientist. Because look at it this way. They cured epilepsy on the beach. And then they got arrested. And I was like, so, yeah, you shouldn't have, like, children there. And they made that explicit in a sign. But, like, if this is for the greater good.
Well, you are aware there's like ethics in scientific research, right? Like,
yeah,
you can't
but they
just
also
do any old research.
But I'm saying if the old island scientists cure cancer, are we gonna arrest them and do this whole?
I mean, I guess it could be a situation of like, informed consent is usually pretty big when it comes to researching.
Those people
science.
were gonna die anyway, though. That was the whole thing. They had diseases that they were going to die, and that's what they were researching. That's all I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, maybe
what
the old
review of old.
My review of old is maybe the old beach scientist got a bad rap.
It's kind of a lawful evil mindset. Like you have the intentions in your head make complete sense, but in the heart you are doing good in a way. But you're also.
I mean, sure, it seems shitty, but like, do you want? If they were like, oh yeah, but now we have this pill that's developed that can cure your epilepsy, you're like, oh, okay. And that lady died for it, and that sucks. But you died, you saved epilepsy. I mean, goddamn, like think about it this way.
I'm assuming the trolley problem is not an issue for you. Like it's a pretty easy cut and dry.
Pull the lever.
Pull that fucking lever. But like, think about it. Like. What was her life really gonna be? It's gonna be kind of, it's gonna be a whatever life. She's gonna have some epileptic seizures, and that's gonna be the life.
Wow!
But now,
sorry, epileptic listeners.
Now
your life is expendable.
Sheesh.
Well, no, clearly, it's a fuck it mentality from everybody who arrested the scientist on the old island. And so, what I'm saying is, like, now her like. You died, like you saved epilepsy. Like you now we don't have to ever never deal with that ever again because you went to the old island.
I mean, maybe they could have got some epileptic, monkeys or rats and threw them on the island. I don't know.
How is that any like?
Do animals get epilepsy?
I don't know.
I feel like if they do, they probably don't have a way to communicate that to us.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
excuse me, I'm having an epileptic episode. Give me 1 moment. Says the
actually, animals do have because my dog used to have epileptic.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was crazy.
Damn. Okay, well,
your dog should die on the old island.
I mean, I would have sent my dog to the old island if it would have cured epilepsy. Been like, I mean, you're a dog, whatever. Like,
I mean, I appreciate
all I'm saying is like they got a bad rap.
Yeah.
Because they were like solving and that's just how you solve.
Ethical standards for scientific research should be loosened, according to Zach. That's the moral of the story.
Listen, you dump a COVID patient on the old island, they would fix COVID, but then the ethics of it. They would solve the pandemic on the old island.
We did solve the pandemic. We have a vaccine.
But the thing with COVID is
No. It wouldn't be just the vaccine they would shut it all down because
it would just
a mushroom cloud that would just deteriorate all COVID
some kind of cure
molecules.
for all coronaviruses, which is like the common virus of the common cold.
Yeah.
And COVID is a coronavirus, but
just saying, all I'm saying is that I think that was an overreaction. Both of those kids sucked. And so I wouldn't have believed them.
Did they?
Oh, and then also, why did that kid fuck that lady? And then they had a baby.
Oh yeah, that happened.
They fell in love. Okay, they were teenagers.
No, they did. They were
5 years old.
They were 7-year-olds. Like
10
minutes ago.
And they were in love.
What's that ethics? We didn't get an ethics discussion on that. I'm just saying. I'm with the scientist. I stand for the scientist, and I would send people to the old island if we could develop cures for diseases. That's how I feel. I'm gonna stand by that.
All right.
I do find it interesting that like your main takeaway from this was, I guess, like the philosophical, and you
rest
know,
of it was fine.
Like kind of like construction of like the plot, because I don't know, like when I show up for a Shyamalan movie, that's like the last thing on my mind. Like, you know,
that was number one, man.
Like
that was my first takeaway.
Like I show up for just like the unconventional, you know, writing, you know, like who else's mind could have given us mid-size sedan? Like that
mid-size
sedan.
Rest of it, like it was fun. I enjoyed myself the entire way. I just felt like at the end they like arrested the sign. I was like, well, hold on, like let's.
I mean, I do think the formalist reappraisal of M. Night Shyamalan is like very much a cinephile thing, right? I think most people, because M. Night Shyamalan is a household name, most people who know M. Night Shyamalan and go see his movies go see them because he has a reputation for making crazy plot twists.
Right? Yeah,
like,
exactly.
That twist. So like I think that, you know, it is weird how little discussion the twist of Old has gotten. I guess because the premise is so memeable that you don't need to talk about the twist.
I enjoyed the ride so much of like Old. Like I was just so entertained. I don't even remember. I had forgotten what the twist was until you brought it up. Like
the twist is just it's scientists, right? Like they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, it wasn't I was like, oh, that's okay. And then they got arrested, and I was like, well, hold on, wait 1 second.
Oh, they like bring sick people there to like.
Yeah,
to cure
people have the diseases and they bring them to the old island,
right?
Because they can give them pills to kind of test to see how stuff like reacts. And at the old island, they age for 60, 80 years or whatever, all in that day. So then they can see the effects over many years, and then they learn all this great medical information.
Right. Yeah. See, that never even occurred to me.
Let's also be honest. There's a lot of people on the earth. Okay.
The real Lord Farquaad. Some of you may die.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people. We keep having babies and shit, and there's just a lot of people.
Is it also like a meta thing where the scientists observing the people on the island is supposed to be like a metaphor for being a film director? Because like there's the Shyamalan himself is playing the guy who's like looking at them through the big rear window camera from across the bay. And,
see, and like I love that dumb shit. Like that's dumb, but like only Shyamalan would present us with something so like he's so fucking silly, but he's also like he's a huge film nerd, and he like genuinely loves cinema, and there's no cynicism in his filmmaking, and that's like and cynicism's very fashionable in film, or like at least as like a worldview for your like the gritty like appropriation of like superhero films, but no, he's just like
the more nihilistic your worldview is, the more true it's kind of seen to be.
Yeah, and it's just like you're not gonna get that shit with him, like, but that is like a very like subjective kind of taste, but yeah, and like just so much like wonky ass camera work on the beach, like when we're going from like from like situation to situation, and it's like it's definitely like it's very much it's like very intentional. It's very, very intentional. Very, very like cool to observe. Like, and I just love the spectacle of it. But yeah. I mean, I hear you though. I do hear you, Zach. I feel your disposition.
No, that and it has nothing to do with the quality of the movie. I was completely. It was more like my takeaway thinking about it was like, and everybody who I've had drinks with afterwards has heard this exact same conversation. So it's just that's been my thing lately. It's been like, so guess what? I think the old beach scientists got a raw deal, and they're like, Zach, go back over there or somewhere.
That definitely sounds like an icebreaker to use on a date, like on a first date. Like, hey, Like,
what do you think
Have you
about the
seen
old
Old?
scientist?
yeah, have you seen Old? Like,
Let's discuss the ethics of the scientific
yeah. I mean,
Let's do
all
the
I'm
trolley
saying-
problem right now.
keeps me up at night.
Yes, you only have to stress on the trial. Just too many people, man. There's a lot of people.
Wow.
A lot of people. On that note,
Yeah.
all you tons of people listening to this podcast right now,
Tons.
we're gonna take a short break, and then we'll be back talking about He Got Game after this.
Now that we've cleansed our podcast of epileptic listeners.
Well, they would have found a cure if they would have just let the old scientists continue. Instead, those assholes arrested them because what old Alex Wolf is like, oh, they stole our family. Like, whatever.
Oh, that's another pro that movie has going for it. I didn't hate Alex Wolf in it. You know, he's growing on me. I used to not stand the guy in movies, but between this and Pig, like like I get it.
Yeah.
He hasn't really impressed me that much in anything I've seen, but I don't dislike him either.
He's hell of an annoying in Hereditary.
Oh yeah, no, he's awful.
God
Hereditary.
awful.
He's not cut out for like the
He
emotional
should have
depth.
got his head knocked off, man.
He couldn't handle the scenes with Toni Collette. Like he just doesn't have the chops for it.
Yeah, it was kind of like
I thought that Toni Collette was a bit much in Hereditary.
Well, that's how he felt, and then he was in those scenes. He was just like, oh. It's like he was prepared for like a community theater play, and she showed up in Hereditary, and he was like, oh god.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about Ari Aster yet. Like
I think that he has a lot of potential. I think that Hereditary is like a very flawed movie, but I think that Midsommar is a pretty big improvement.
Yeah, and I like Midsommar a lot more than Hereditary. Hereditary is just like 21st century Don't Look Now. Essentially,
yeah, like he wears his influences on his sleeve, hardcore.
But Midsommar is pretty cool. Like it's a cool movie, and I like the elements that make it. But do I think about it? You know,
like I actually do. I've been like simmering on an essay about Midsommar for a while.
I think the most like poignant parts of that movie is like all of the interpersonal like relationship stuff.
Yes, for sure. That's mostly what I want to write about.
Yeah, I think his chops as like a presenter of like horror or like horrific elements are more like he clearly admires the genre, but I don't know if those are like what he's best suited for. But I don't know.
I mean, I think there's some pretty like terrifying stuff in Hereditary. It just doesn't all come together for me.
Yeah.
And Midsommar doesn't really feel like it's going for that, or like it feels like it's more pitched at like a horror comedy level than anything else.
I'd love to hear about the comedy elements because I feel like most people wouldn't think of that movie as funny.
Oh, we published an essay the week the movie came out from my friend Michael O'Malley, who wrote about it as a horror comedy. And so I thought that his essay was really good. You should go check it out. I should, because
yeah. I would think it's interesting when people talk about the humor in a movie you don't think is funny, and it's like, oh, like, is there like a level here that like I'm not getting? And it's like, oh, that
his main thing was, you know, in most horror comedies they kind of fluctuate between doing a horror moment and doing a comedy moment, but in Midsommar, like the horror and the comedy are like the same moment, and there will be some people in the audience laughing and some people in the audience gasping. For totally different reasons.
That's a very interesting point. Though that's exactly what I would say about another movie I would say is a horror comedy, Gone Girl.
Oh yeah, that's a really good.
Gone Girl's funny as shit.
It is very
funny. For the same moments that it's really, really dark. So yeah, that's a good point. That like makes me look at it maybe a little differently. Yeah.
I dropped that review in the chat.
I saw that. Thank you.
Yeah. We'll see how long.
Is that Is that really expensive poster from Tarkovsky's debut behind you guys? Not poster. It was like an art print.
I don't think so. There's no way.
It was from Earthbound. It was probably like $20.
There's this poster company called Dragon Press something. They're like a UK company, and they sell really high quality original artwork of movies. And they have one for Ivan's childhood, which is the trees in the movie arranged just like the way behind you, and it looks just like that. And if I can find it, I will send it to you. Yeah. Dragon Press from the UK, but it might be something else after the press.
Oh, I can't remember. Limited edition print. It looks very similar.
No, I like.
Though it's the opposite perspective. It's a top-down view.
Oh, okay.
Instead of a bottom-up.
Yeah.
View.
Oh, yeah. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Similar. Yeah.
Yep. It's a nice poster.
Thanks.
It is.
It was at Earth. We got it probably forever ago, at like Earthbound for probably $20.
I would just tell people it's Tarkovsky.
Yeah. You could just totally tell people that. Yeah.
Keen eye, friend. Yes, it is. It was $1 million.
Exactly. We handed him a big check.
What? It was $1 million.
It was a small price to pay for a beautiful print, a work of art.
Yep.
Y'all ready? Talk about some hoops.
Yes.
Yep.
Hoop up.
Hooping.
All right, here we go. In 3, 2, 1. And we're back with part 2 of episode 387 of Cinematary. In this part, we'll be continuing our Labor in Basketball series with 1998's He Got Game. Written and directed by Spike Lee, the film stars Denzel Washington, Ray Allen, Rosario Dawson, and Mila Jovovich. Jake Shuttleworth has spent the last 6 years in prison after accidentally killing his wife during a violent domestic dispute, leaving his son, star basketball prospect Jesus Shuttleworth, to fend for himself. One day, the prison warden approaches Jake with an unusual offer. He'll be given a week of parole to convince Jesus to attend the governor's alma mater with the promise of a shortened sentence if he succeeds. For the role of Jesus, Lee had drawn up a list of every NBA player who could pass for a high school senior. Kobe Bryant was the original choice to portray Jesus Shuttlesworth, but after shooting several air balls that resulted in a brutal playoff loss to the Utah Jazz in the 1997 NBA playoffs, he planned an extensive workout plan that would help maintain his strength throughout the duration of the longer NBA seasons. So he did not do it.
What a movie it would be if Kobe Bryant was in this movie.
I'm happy he wasn't in it because I just think it would be distracting. But I'm somewhat younger, so like I don't know. Like my relationship to Kobe and like greater pop culture like maybe different than like when like people who were around when it came out. But
yeah, this was 97, so he was a lot younger. But so then Lee found Tracy McGrady. He was too reserved, though. He wasn't impressed by Allen Iverson. And then management for Kevin Garnett and Stephon Marbury wanted a guarantee that one or the other would be offered the part if they did it. And it's worth mentioning that Stephon Marbury is from Coney Island, so that would have been an interesting connection. Travis
Kevin
Best
Garnett would have done it. You could have double featured it with
Uncut. Yeah, that'd be a cool connection. Yeah.
Travis Best, Walter McCarty, and Rick Fox also auditioned, and Lee ended up casting them in supporting roles. Lee approached Allen during halftime of a Bucks-Knicks game, ultimately offering him the role of Jesus. Allen had never acted before, and he trained with an acting coach for 8 weeks prior to filming. Let's just have a nice street sweeper go by.
That's really surprising. I thought he was one of the better actors in the movie, honestly.
Interesting. I could tell like he hadn't acted very much before, but I thought it worked for his role. Like I thought it was appropriate for like the character he played.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he nailed perfectly a basketball guy. So I guess he didn't have to try all that hard. I thought he was one of the better ones. Though. Anyway, sorry.
Lee wrote the story with Coney Island in mind. He said, quote, with Coney Island, you get some great visual images of the amusement parks, Wonder Wheel, the Cyclone, the beach, and the Atlantic Ocean. There's also a kind of weathered and rundown look to many of the buildings that fit with the story and the design of the film. We wanted Coney Island and the locale to be a character in this film, not just the amusement park, but the housing projects as well. Talking about the father-son relationship, Lee said, the dynamic in the father-son relationship between Jake and Jesus is really about reconciliation. It brings up the questions, when do you start forgiving someone who has done a great injustice or harm to you? And can you and should you forgive him or her? I don't think I've ever done a film that is just about one thing. Life is filled with different stories and issues, and they are all interwoven. So in this film, we are also looking at the exploitation of the student athlete. People see young athletes as walking banks, and everybody wants a piece of the action. Speaking to that, in his character, Ray Allen said, people automatically believe that because you're going to be rich, they're going to be rich. I've seen it happen. People just want to do things for you because they figure they're going to get it back tenfold. And it's often the people on the outskirts of the situation that try the hardest to hook into some connection to try and get close to you. In reality, I think the most pressure that young guys feel comes from their families and people that are in their own circle, their best friends and their girlfriends. And some people's family members aren't as enthused about their careers. That places even more pressure on the guys to do well. They try to perform for other people rather than just for the joy of the game. In 1998, the Hollywood Reporter said there's some serious virtuoso filmmaking on display in He Got Game, which easily could have been subtitled Spike Lee's Hoop Dreams. As a director, Lee continues to hone his considerable craft and is unafraid to take creative risks along the way. But after leaving the scripting to others for his past few feature outings, he has returned to the word processor, and it's evident his screenwriting abilities haven't kept pace. In 1998, the Washington Post said he got too much movie. That's the scoring total on Spike Lee's He Got Game, which ultimately must be judged a mild disappointment. It's too jam-packed with subplots suggesting an insane ambition to make not just the great American father-son basketball movie, but also the great American sports recruiting movie, the great American prostitute redemption movie, the great American domestic violence movie, and the great American exploitation of color by the man movie. And in 1998, Roger Ebert said, Spike Lee brings the spirit of a poet to his films about everyday reality. He Got Game, the story of the pressures on the nation's best high school basketball player, could have been a gritty docudrama, but it's really more of a heartbreaker about a father and his son. Lee uses visual imagination to lift his material into the realms of hopes and dreams. So on that note, let's talk a little bit about He Got Game. Andrew, I know you've seen this before, a couple times before.
Yeah.
Anything stand out in this most recent watch?
Yeah, this is my second time watching it. I really like this movie. It's one of my favorite Spike Lee movies. And a perennial topic of conversation with Spike Lee is like his movies having too much in them, like that quote that you read, Zach. Like we talked about this with The Five Bloods 2 years ago, I think. Like I felt like that movie was just a bit too messy for my taste. But He Got Game, I feel like, is one of those maximalist Spike Lee movies that I think does come together really well for the most part. Now, if I could just excise the whole prostitute redemption subplot out of the movie, I would totally do that. I don't really think it serves much of a purpose at all. I don't think it like enriches that movie for Denzel's character to have that, developing relationship on the side. But it does, it kind of ties into the overall themes of the movie or whatever.
I get why it's there, but yeah,
I get it. I do think it's kind of like it throws the movie off balance in a weird way. But for the most part, I think this movie like walks a really nice tightrope of like juggling a million subplots and a million characters and a million ideas, while feeling like it's unified by this, authorial voice or authorial intent. And we had to do this movie for our Labor and Basketball series. I think that it's like particularly good to watch right after Hoop Dreams, which I actually haven't listened to the Hoop Dreams episode of the podcast yet, Zach. So you'll have to tell me if I'm just retreading ground you guys have already talked about. But there's a moment in Hoop Dream where Spike Lee shows up and is talking directly to the kids in that movie. And it's like a really jarring moment because he's pretty much the only person I remember in that movie being very real with the high school athletes and kind of discouraging them from pursuing this dream. Like I wrote down the quote that he says in my Letterboxd review of He Got Game. Spike Lee says to the kids, "You have to realize that nobody cares about you. You're black, you're a young male. All you're supposed to do is deal drugs and mug women. The only reason why you're here, you can make their team win. If their team wins, these schools get a lot of money. This whole thing is revolving around money." And like that last sentence, this whole thing revolves around money, is the statement of this movie, right? It's a movie where like every character motivation at any given moment can be traced back to this person's financial incentive, whether it's like a very selfish financial incentive to like become more rich and powerful than they already are, or a kind of like understandable financial incentive from like a poor person, somebody who's like grown up in an impoverished community, to do anything they can to get out of that impoverished community. Like I think it's a very interesting like I don't know, it takes this one tiny little intersection of things of like college and high school sports and kind of like gets at something very fundamental about how so many things work in America. So yeah, I think it's very insightful movie in general, and I like it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Nazeeh, what about you? Had you seen this before?
No, this was my first time. I'm hit or miss with Spike Lee, but as soon as it started, I was immediately in. I immediately loved the style, the 90s as hell. Just like some of the shots, like a lot of the establishing opening like montages in the movie are almost like an infomercial, but in a really good way. Like
the opening sequence with all the people playing basketball.
Yeah.
Or
totally.
the montage of all the recruiters or all the coaches of all these college teams talking directly to the camera.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. For better or for worse, like Spike Lee is somebody who like does exactly what he wants, and that's like one of the things I appreciate the most about him. Like the smarmy line that critics said about like him being like the screenwriter again.
Yeah.
Is like to the film like I get what they mean, and like there's some corny lines in this and like corny jokes, but to what one of you were saying about how it's like a heartwarming film, like it's appropriate, like the intent here is very clear, and like the priorities here are like very, very clear. And to what you were saying, Andrew, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, I thought that Jesus's little sister was a very, very excellent young actor, and I really enjoyed all the scenes with her. And the scene with her and her brother in her bedroom, and she's telling him about like all of the money that people have told her like she's gonna be around, and she's just telling him what she's heard, and her brother freaks out. And he like grabs her, and he's like, "What are you talking about? Like, we don't have any money. Like we're still poor. Like none of this is real. Like nothing is real yet." And like for as young as he is, like he has got like a good head on his shoulders, and there there's a clumsiness to him because he's like forced to take care of his sister, and he has like this fucked up past, and his mother's not alive, and like of course you're gonna be awkward like being a guardian, so like again, like I think that hiring a non-professional was a good move on Lee's part. I could not imagine Kobe delivering these lines at all. I don't know if he's if he can act, but I think it turned out for the best. Also, like again, like only Spike Lee would name a main character just Jesus. Nobody else in the world would have the balls. Like at first, when they first said his name, I'm like, oh, like Jesus. Like there's a Hispanic. Nope, Jesus. His name's Jesus. Spike Lee's like, yeah, because like
they spend a long time justifying it. Like they talk about the fact that he's named Jesus a lot in the movie.
It's not like they're trying to like pass that under. I love that line too, where he was like, "Why the fuck did you name me Jesus?" And Denzel says, "It's biblical," and Jesus says, "No kidding." That was great.
Also, like it allowed for like the montage of the coaches, and they're like, "We're just so happy, his parents named him exactly what he is, you know, Jesus, like the second coming of basketball, like
it sets that up perfectly, and it also sets up the women who are interested just like moaning, "Oh Jesus," you know, like you have like
like oh my god,
well, like the whole movie, it's just people moaning, "Oh Jesus," whether it's a college basketball coach or it's a woman, you know, like it's the whole movie.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, Jessy, what did you make of the movie?
I didn't love it. It was not at all my favorite Spike Lee movie. Not in the top at all. I mean, it definitely has the familiarity. Like Nazeeh, I think you were mentioning all the little like side pans where it'll go to like one person and they'll sort of interview them. It's all. I think Spike Lee kind of has that. I don't know if you'd call that a motif, or he does things like that in a lot of his movies where he'll just kind of pull just to one person, kind of get their perspective on it. It's really neat.
Like you think about the sequence in Do the Right Thing, where there's people just like shouting slurs at the camera, like different types of people shouting different types of slurs.
So I mean, so that was fun, and he does it in different ways in both those movies, but it definitely has that familiarity between the two, where you can really feel his style, but I don't know. To me, a lot of the acting just didn't work for me at all, and I mean, it was like the one thing with the sex worker. I thought that whole plot line, like every bit of it, every scene with that, I thought was just really corny. And there could have been a way to do that well, but I thought just overall it was just sort of unnecessary and corny. I didn't like the acting. I didn't root for that like scene. I don't know. So my biggest thing for me was just a lot of the acting did not work at all. I didn't really like the sister acting very much.
Wow, okay. I thought she was like a great kid. Like that's how kids act, but
I mean, she certainly sounded like a real kid, I guess, but I don't know. She sounded like a kid delivering lines. You know what I mean?
Fair, yeah.
There's a lot of clashing acting styles in the movie. You have somebody who is not an actor, is a professional athlete, but nonetheless like took a bunch of acting lessons to like really gear up for this like Hollywood debut. You have non-professional actors like the sister. You have somebody like Denzel, who is an amazing actor, but also doesn't really act like anybody else. And then you have just like a wide spectrum of other actors from like Rosario Dawson to John Turturro, etc., kind of peppering this cast. I was also, who's the guy? I don't remember this actor's name. The guy who plays Radio Raheem in Do the Right Thing. He shows up as the uncle.
Bill Nunn.
Oh yeah,
Bill Nunn. Yeah.
The two of them, the uncle and the aunt, got on my nerves in every scene they were in.
That's a strange scene.
Like, it's super strange.
It feels like.
Were they asking for money?
Well, they're asking for money.
Well, but other scenes like that played out differently. To me, those two characters just felt really out of place. Like the accents, especially the accent
on a different register.
The accent that the aunt was doing, especially, just was really too much. I don't know. Both of those characters just felt like caricatures. They didn't feel. It felt like goobery. I don't know how to explain it other than to say that. It just wasn't. I don't know. That was, to me, just made the whole movie feel very, very bumpy and awkward, and it took me out of it so much. I mean, the plot. I think what I do like best about it is, how they lean so much into talking about the finances and the pressure that young male athletes face. Especially young Black male athletes face, and that I think was the most interesting part of it for me. But so much of acting and the way the characters were written, even I think the script, I just wasn't a big fan of the script really, but I was interested. I liked the economic side of it, and that was probably what I liked best about it.
I think it's a movie that, somebody mentioned, I think it was Ebert, this could have been like a docudrama or something that was much more serious and much more dressed up, and it wouldn't have nearly been as impactful. I think that I like the way that you have all of these like various styles, and it's just kind of like all these like weird jagged edged like things all coming out of different places that don't make cohesive sense, but then like he's able to like sweep them all up into this like he's able to just kind of like sweep them all up into this one grab and just kind of put them all together. And like, yeah, it doesn't seem like it works, but there's something really compelling about, it's less about like the technique and more about like the emotion. Like you think about like what's so great about the one-on-one game between Denzel and Ray Allen is not the acting of that, but just like the physicality, the emotion, like just the energy of that. Like to me, it's a movie about like it's epitomized in that opening sequence, like basketball as ballet, like this very physical act, and so everything feels very like physical and overlonged. It almost like kind of like a lot of the characters feel German, like they feel like very like elongated, like almost absurd caricatures. Like I don't think you're supposed to take them all 100% serious. Like think about like John Turturro when he shows up as that coach, like he's absurd for like 5 minutes. But it plays into exactly like the whole energy that this movie is kind of emanating. And that's kind of how I ride with this movie. Like it's all about the energy.
Speaking of kind of like clashing energies and the opening sequence that you mentioned, Zach, it has this like musical clash too, where it goes back and forth between this very like beautiful
opening score is gorgeous,
like almost like the kind of thing that you would hear in a religious epic over people playing basketball. And then other scenes are
Public Enemy?
Public
Enemy.
Enemy,
He intercuts it with Public Enemy. Yeah.
Well, it's the score. So that was something that really stuck out to me this time was his use of Aaron Copland music. So Aaron Copland is like kind of like the granddaddy of American classical music, like that. Like he
didn't know that.
Like you're grabbing like all of the music that he's using in this, he's grabbing from Appalachian songs. So that opening sequence is John Henry. So you have the whole John Henry, that whole mythology baked into all of these, predominantly black male basketball players. It's like the whole Aaron Copland angle I was thinking about, because you have so many. There's something so like I'm trying to kind of like understand like just how he's trying to make all of this so lyrical, because you have like
lyrical
the
is the
score,
word.
You have all this score that feels much more, because Copeland's stuff is very in tune with like folk music and very traditional like 1700s 1800s American that kind
I'm
of
imagining
like built in that.
Panning shots across the Great Plains or something. Listening to that music.
And so like it was such a like a fascinating choice that he chose to go with like that throughout the film, because it does like it adds like it's a different layer than when like you would assume that like Public Enemy or something like that would be playing while they're playing basketball in the 90s. But
he's kind of establishing basketball as like this American pastime, like the way that people often mythologize baseball as like America's sport, right? And when in that opening sequence when we're seeing people play basketball, it's not just African Americans playing basketball, it's white kids out in the country playing basketball as well. And so there's like this moment of like he's like reaching for a universal buy-in. Like this is an American story. We're about to tell like an American dream myth of sorts. Going back to one of those quotes from the info sheet, Zach, the idea that Spike Lee doesn't want to just make the best college recruitment movie or whatever. It seems like he's trying to make like a great American novel sort of movie, talking about that somebody's like aspirations towards reaching the American dream through their own like hard work and effort.
I definitely thought the score was an interesting choice. I didn't like it though. It just felt a little too cookie cutter for me, the way it was just here's our inspirational music. I mean, like I said, it was a neat choice. I guess I would have preferred if it was all Public Enemy or if they'd just done something just a little bit different. To me, it just read mostly as kind of corny.
Do you feel like you feel that way because we're watching it like after it's become a cliche, like that genre of music? Like, do you think it's just like a consequence of the time? Maybe it was
Probably,
fresher.
yeah.
Cliche when Lee used it, right?
I mean, I think that's entirely possible. That it you know, I've heard I've watched kind of inspirational movies, and they have that same kind of thing, and I get that's sort of what this movie is. It's sort of an inspirational movie, sort of a battle movie, sort of like a political movie, but it just felt a little too on the nose for me. I don't know. I guess I wanted a little more subtlety, and it was trying to evoke some kind of.
Spike Lee is not really big.
I don't know. It was trying to evoke some kind of. It was trying to evoke some kind of feeling, and all I was kind of feeling about it was a little corny.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, music choices for Spike Lee always feel so intentional and like part of an argument to me. Like Do the Right Thing opening with Fight the Power is like an opening argument, or in Da 5 Bloods, isn't it? Is it Inner City Blues by Marvin Gaye that they use, or is it What's Going On by Marvin Gaye? I forget.
What's Going On's later.
Okay, yeah, but either one of them, those are both from the same album, and it's an album with like a famously political bent to it. So like when I'm so glad that you brought up the context of like this American composer, Zach, because I can see him like pulling that because he wants like this particular like reference to evoke this particular feeling, and kind of, you know, change the way the audience is like immediately thinking about basketball.
One, it's not something I would push back that it's not a cliche, because you wouldn't see this type of music with a bunch of black athletes, you know, like
the music itself is cliche, but the juxtaposition is not,
that's what he's doing,
and the new context it's in, right? Like
that's kind of the goal, is that you know, if this was Hoosiers, like it would be like, oh, okay, but it's not. He's like you're watching Ray Allen just play a pickup game with guys in Coney Island, and it's playing like this sweeping Aaron Copland score, you know.
And speaking of like references and musical arguments and stuff like that, the big Public Enemy song, I forget what they named theirs, but it's the hook is a sample from Buffalo Springfield, From What It's Worth. The Stop Children, What's That Sound? Everybody Look What's Going Down. Like that song is about the Vietnam War, but they're like repurposing that lyric for, you know, asking us to think about what's going on, to use that reference again with like college athletics, and they're like musically play with that too, because you hear Buffalo Springfield sing it for a little while, but then by the end of the song it's like a black gospel choir like doing their own interpolation of the song. I think it's really, really cool the way that Spike Lee is like, both him and his collaborators are kind of like pulling from this broad mix of influences to create these, you know, broader arguments about the situation they find themselves in.
Yeah. No, I you know, like I said, I was thinking a lot about like how his use of that, and like I think overall he's trying to like establish you know, Jesus's story as kind of like this mythological journey. I read, you know, some other interpretations of it, kind of, you know, interpreting it similar to how we did our last series, where, you know, there's a couple, it's kind of like Jesus, you know, going through trials and tribulations. A lot of it, you know, a lot of the scenes is him going and meeting this agent throwing all this money and you know, power and stuff at him. And then he's going to see the college, you know, he's going to the college, and there's naked women, and there's, you know, people fawning over him, and there's, you know, money, and there's, you know, the stadium, like it's just constantly him having all of this stuff thrown at him. And you have the character of Jesus, who is honestly kind of like, you know, he's kind of pushing back on all of that stuff, which seems almost too good to you know, to handle that, because I mean, you know, most college athletes were already going to be taking that stuff, and so it's not like anybody else was kind of being like him, going, no, this is wrong, I can't do this.
And that kind of thing is so hard to get caught doing. Like it's one of those crimes, kind of like piracy or something. You're like, well, nobody's ever going to find out.
I think he would have gotten a lot more
take
trouble
this?
than they would have too.
Yeah, that's almost definitely true. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it just shows you like it just shows like all from the reason why Denzel gets out of jail to everything else, like just like the degrees that they will go in order to secure this. And like it goes to something that we talked about, that Seth and I talked about last week. We talked a lot about this at one point in Hoop Dreams. They one of the coaches keeps referring to players as thoroughbreds, and how they're like building these thoroughbreds, and like. And so I think that this movie is able to, on like a narrative, rather, compared to a documentary level, is able to kind of like tap into that players as investments concept that's pretty prevalent in Hoop Dreams.
Mm-hmm.
A line that really struck me early on, when the warden or the superintendent, whoever, is like breaking down the deal to him and what he wants him to do. And he's talking about the governor, and he's like, yeah, he was in varsity basketball, good, not great player. Like, it's kind of like a throwaway line, but like, if you're in varsity basketball, you should be a great fucking player.
And that's the thing that also, and we talked about it last week, but like, also the thing, and I think this is why it was good that it was somebody like Ray Allen, great basketball player, and I'm not saying, but it would have been different if it was somebody like Kobe Bryant, who's much more like, people know who Kobe Bryant is.
Mm-hmm.
And like Ray Allen's perfect because he's somewhat inconspicuous. He was never like a super flashy. He was never he was the number one guy in like Seattle, but he was never like super flashy. And so like you also got to remember, like, all of this is being tossed on him, but you don't never necessarily know what happens. He could be like the guy in Hoop Dreams. He could go to school and blow his ankle in the first game and then be done. They talk a little bit about like focusing on education as much as basketball, but that was one thing that we talked about a lot last week with Hoop Dreams was William makes the decision to go to the first college that offers it to him, because they go, if your ankle is, if it falls out in the first week, you still have you have 4 years of scholarship that will let you go through college. And like at the end of the day, that's what was more important to him than whatever was going to happen with basketball. And so this one kind of taps into that as well, because you have like them pushing him to play college, but then you also have the whole NBA angle, just go and get the money and get the endorsements and all that.
Yeah, the discussion of putting education on equal footing with basketball really feels like it's just there kind of as lip service in the movie. Like, not to say that Spike Lee is just putting in there as lip service, but like when Jesus says that, I don't fully believe him that he actually is going to care about his education as much as he cares about basketball. Because how could you, right? Like, this is they don't go into what his future will be at the school, but it's just like intensive like training and practicing all the time. And there's also like discussion in the movie of like him getting a grade changed in high school because it wasn't where it needed to be for him to continue playing basketball. And that does kind of like always take priority. And it's a risk that a lot of people are willing to take, because they're like gambling their whole life on this dream. Like, I'm gonna, if I don't do this, that's gonna make me like lots and lots and lots of money, I might as well not do anything. I might as well just stay in this community. And I don't know, it's really, it's like, it feels very like exploitative, coercive. It feels like a trap to kind of like lure people in with that like promise of more money than you can ever imagine, when like most people are not going to get there, and B, like, even if you do play college basketball for 4 years and you're a superstar or whatever, most people are probably not going to go into the NBA after that. They need some sort of fundamental like education or skill set or something they can kind of go out in the world with.
It's really crazy. Like I mean, just watching this, I'm a school counselor, and I've been doing lessons this month with my students on what they want to be when they grow up, career lessons. And there's always the students who say they want to be like an athlete, or say they want to be like a YouTuber, or something along those lines. And I always kind of toe to fine line there of like, well, you know, you always want to have some other options, and then they'll be like, you know, especially with our older kids, you know, they're thinking a little bit more about it, and they're doing research, and they say, okay, I want to be a professional athlete. I don't have to go to college. So they're doing research, like no college. And I'm like, well, here's the thing. You probably do need to go to college, because if you're going to get recruited for the NBA or I don't know the other acronyms. I don't. You usually get noticed when you're playing college, and I try to not go too heavy into it, but you've got to go to a good school, and you've got to really play good, and that's when you get noticed by the pros, and that's when you get paid professionally. But you have to go to school first, and while you're there, you get an education, so if something doesn't work out, then you have another plan in place. But they're like, well, I knew somebody, my grandpa, my uncle, my this, my that, and I'm like, did you though? I mean, did they really play professional and make like $1 million playing professional football? It's just a weird thing, you know. I don't know.
Well, in $1 million, I mean, we say this, but I mean, I would take $1 million, but like $1 million is not that much, because you think about in this situation, like if Jesus was given $1 million, he's gonna have, you know, there's gonna be that cut for the uncle and the aunt. There's gonna be that cut for the girlfriend, you know, and that's the whole point of the movie, is that, you know, most NBA players are not LeBron James or Kobe Bryant, or, you know, people like that who make bukus of cash and are just ultra rich. Most of them are like are these guys right now who are taking 10-day contracts because of all the COVID stuff, and are just kind of like making ends meet and just like happy to be on the court. And like, they're not making a bunch of money. Like, if anything, they're probably on the same level as a lot of other people, because they're not millionaires. They're working, they're doing literally 10-day contracts, and then they're done. And I think that's where the majority of the people are going, and so that's not a sustainable like career path for you. You know, it's like you kind of go in and assume you're going to be LeBron James and have all these endorsements and stuff. And you're like, no, I mean, that's for like a select few, but that's not most people.
And of course, this is not a thing that gets brought up in the movie either, but as part of a labor in basketball series, we should note that these athletes are not getting paid for the work that they're doing while they're in college. Like, they absolutely are working and making the university lots and lots and lots of money, and like sacrificing their own physical body in a lot of cases, like to the point where like they're not going to be like, they will sustain like many injuries over the course of their tenure with the team a lot of the time. But they're not being reimbursed for it, and like not getting the same kind of education they would get otherwise at the same time. So it just feels like a really raw deal all around.
No, and that's we talked about that a little bit last week. I mean, it's just you put, you know, we were watching Hoop Dreams, and we were watching this high school coach push them and like put all of these, like, you know, all this, you know, this physical just grind on their bodies, and then they're going to go to college, and it's going to be double that. And then if you survive all of that, you're not getting paid for any of that stuff. If you survive all of that, you get to go to the NBA, and again, you're not going to be LeBron James. You're going to go in and probably, you know, more often than not, flame out after a year or two, make a little bit of money, but then that's it, you know. And then I think, you know, going back to some of the like subplots of this movie, I think, you know, I don't think that the whole story with Denzel and the prostitute was like necessary, like in this but I understand like what he's saying, because he's saying he's making the connection between the system she's stuck in and the system Jesus is about to get stuck in, because like at the end of the movie, they get what they want, but it's not really necessarily a happy ending. I mean, they're both still stuck in their systems. You know, he's still stuck in prison. Yes. He's still stuck in the basketball system's not going to be kind to him. So
I love that match cut, like the pass from the prison court to the college gym, kind of like equating these two spaces on some level. And of course, like Denzel's character did murder somebody. This is not somebody who kind of like, pulled over on the cops on a phony charge or whatever, and given a sentence that was like way extreme for what he did. But like, I know that Spike Lee is like familiar with like the machinations of the prison industrial complex and the ways in which that is like a machine for profit. And so like I can't help but make that connection in my head between how prisons work and how universities work, and specifically how universities exploit athletes. Like in both cases, like it's primarily like these elite white institutions kind of exploiting black bodies for money. That's really gross to think about.
It's kind of insane to like think about how much being good at basketball is like tied to like someone's like self-esteem or self-worth. I think the scene where Denzel's coming back into the neighborhood and he meets his son and Booger, his son's cousin, on the court, and Booger's not trying to talk to Denzel at all. Like he's not trying to talk to him, and Denzel keeps trying to like catch up, and then he just like says he got a few inches taller.
Yeah.
And Booger like completely shifts. Booger did a complete 180. He's like, what? Like for real? And Denzel's like, yeah. And he's like, oh, like welcome back, uncle. Like, and it's just like that's just all it took. And there's definitely something to be said about like the height of men tied to like their self-worth, like in general, overall. But and I'd be interested to know how much of that is reflected in like the like idolatry of sports in like American culture, but that's a whole other thing. So yeah,
I mean, it's tied to the question of like, can Denzel beat his son on the court now? Like it's this dominance thing. Like if I'm a little taller, that means that I have that much more of an edge on you. I mean, I can beat you, and therefore like I've proven myself to you as a man or whatever, right?
Well, he humiliates him with that. I mean, that's the whole crux of the relationship where I mean, Denzel's drinking and just beating this kid at basketball as if he was like a grown person, and it's all about like the physicality and the height. He's just like, I'm a bigger human than you are, and I'm gonna like dominate you. Which again just plays into I love the final one-on-one that they have. Like it's just so emotive without, it's not even about acting, it's just them playing basketball, and it's amazing. And it's
I
all
love
about
that you can kind of Spike Lee shoots like the whole game, and that you can kind of track like who gets a point where. I'm wondering, Zach, since I know you've probably seen more basketball movies than me, is this a trope in basketball movies where like whatever the central conflict of the movie is, even if it has nothing to do with basketball,
yes, I already know what the question is. Yes,
settled in a basketball game? Because I'm thinking of Love and Basketball, where they decide whether or not they're going to be together based on whether or not he can beat her in a basketball game in the climactic scene.
Yeah, most of the time, yeah.
I just think it's a sports trope.
Yeah,
like,
sport. Well, yeah, I mean,
usually the conflict of a sports movie is like, are we going to win the championship or whatever? And like, these are just personal dramas.
Yeah, but we're also going to like come through. We're going to settle our personal dramas through the thing.
It's like an honorable field that like doesn't have to like deal with emotion, right? Like it's this very like cut, like black and white like agreement, like one thing happens and one person wins and one person loses.
It's like a duel. Yeah. Like one person's gonna leave and one person's not. That's what.
And it's settled. Like it's a way to settle something.
Yeah.
It's a very cinematic way to settle something.
Yeah, I mean, like you think of like that again, that one-on-one, like it's done. He has nothing to say after that. Like it's
don't talk about. We've talked and we've played.
Yeah. We've talked and we've played. The end.
Yeah.
Any final thoughts on He Got Game before we wrap up?
I feel like I've said everything I need to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm the resident naysayer.
No, that's good. It makes for better conversation.
I think Nazeeh is gonna think Jess just doesn't like movies. I like movies, just not.
No. I've talked to you about. Well, I guess because you didn't like Belle, but no, I mean, there's a lot of movies out there, so I couldn't base my opinion on just 2 movies. So.
Well, if you would like to learn more about Cinematary, you can head over to Facebook at facebook.com/Cinematary, on Twitter and Instagram at handle @Cinematary, and on Letterboxd at letterboxd.com/Cinematary, where we post all the movies that we talked about in this episode. Thank you to our patrons. If you would like to support the show, head over to patreon.com/Cinematary. Thank you to Cam, Chad Newsom, Corey Willingham, Harry Eskin, Candace Sisson, Ron Hayes, Titus Arthur, Tyler Chandler, and Whitney Rio Ross. Thank you so much for your patronage. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up this series with 2019's High Flying Bird. Going to get some Soderbergh in here.
That's a good movie. I like that movie.
A movie without which this series probably would not exist. It is doing the labor and basketball thing. That's it.
Yeah. Here's the real thing. I just don't really like sports, so maybe I should get out of here.
The episode's over, fun. So
I don't know.
I gotta get out of here.
It's funny. I don't care for sports at all, but I'll watch the hell out of a sports movie. I love them.
Good stuff.
I also I don't like sports in general, but I do have a soft spot for basketball for some reason. He's I watch a basketball movie way faster than I would watch any other.
Andrew is a baller on the inside.
Coach Carter was very formative for me as a kid. I watched that movie a bunch growing up. Yeah, love Coach Carter.
Until next week.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until next week. It won't be Coach Carter, but until next week.
Yeah.
Stay cool.